Hello and welcome to this news desk from New York City Live. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at this hour's headlines. The U.S. National Weather Service says that brutal weather storm over the U.S. has killed at least 32 people amid plummeting temperatures and power outages to ease only by Tuesday. The Midwest and Eastern U.S. are the worst hit. Meanwhile, migrants from South America are made a political pawn. War of words escalates as busloads of illegal migrants are dropped off in Washington amid freezing temperatures. Taiwan says China deployed 71 warplanes in the weekend's military exercises around the island, further adding that 43 of these airplanes crossed the median straight line in the last 24 hours. British Consultancy Centre for Economic and Business Research warns of global economic recession in 2023, raises concern on China's COVID policy and lack of growth-oriented policies in the UK. And the European Union and its leaders condemn Taliban's latest ban on women from working in NGOs, and they say the move amounts to erasing women from public space. Let's talk about the weather here in the United States. Extreme weather conditions continue to increase as the brutal winter storm continues to rage in the country. The death toll due to heavy snowfall now stands at 34, and officials warn that the death toll could further rise. The situation is particularly bad in New York, where at least 12 people died on Christmas Day. Officials describe the situation as harrowing. The state witnessed hour-long whiteouts where emergency services discovered bodies in vehicles under heavy snowbanks.
Unfortunately, we have 12 deaths that have been confirmed by the Erie County Department of Health Medical Examiner Office. I can specifically note that 6 were in the city of Buffalo, 3 were in the town of Amherst, of which one of them was in the village of Amherst, located in the town. 3 were in the town of Cheektowaga, of which one of them was in the village of Depew in the town of Cheektowaga.
Due to a massive storm that turned into a bomb cyclone, more than 200,000 people across several eastern states were left without power on Christmas Eve, while many had to modify their travel plans as 2,400 flights were canceled due to the snowstorm. New York Governor Kathy Hochul called the blizzard a once-in-a-lifetime weather disaster. She further added that the Biden administration had agreed to support her request for a federal disaster declaration.
The National Guard is here. Lastly, I'll say I've been in contact with the White House. Just spoke in the last hour with Ron Klain, the Chief of Staff to President Biden. He has assured me that within a very short time of them receiving our request for a disaster declaration, it will be granted. And that is good news for us to be able to start covering the cost of this epic, once-in-a-lifetime storm that we're now having to deal with.
Temperatures in some parts have plunged to as low as minus 45.6 degrees. Weather experts have warned of frostbites and hyperthermia and have urged everyone to take necessary precautions. The flow of illegal migrants across the U.S. border has acquired distinct political overtones. U.S. border state governors have frequently called attention to the Biden government's so-called pro-immigration policies, and the latest incident was seemingly an example of just that. 3 busloads of migrants were dropped off outside the house of Vice President Kamala Harris on Christmas Eve in frigid temperatures. Kamala Harris is the Biden administration's so-called border czar, in charge of solving the crisis at the border. Nearly 130 migrants were on board the buses, including young children. Some were wearing just T-shirts. The arrivals included some asylum seekers from Ecuador, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Peru, and Colombia. It's not clear who is responsible for sending the migrants to the Naval Observatory, where the vice president's residence is located. The White House, however, put the blame on Texas Governor Greg Abbott, calling it, quote, cruel, dangerous, and a shameful stunt. Lashing out at Texas Republican Governor Abbott, the White House said that it's willing to work with anyone, Republican or Democrat, for a real solution to the long-standing migrants issue. Republicans and some Democrats, however, say that actions speak louder than words. Abbott is one of 3 Republican governors who have taken credit for flying migrants north this year to protest the Biden administration's open border policies. Hundreds of Mexicans are battling frigid temperatures on the U.S.-Mexico border as they look to make their way across the border into Texas. The U.S. Supreme Court has put a hold on the termination of a Trump-era policy called Title 42 that has blocked thousands of people from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. For now, this was at the request of the Biden administration, who wanted to lift it, but then changed its mind at the last minute. Taiwan has reported China's largest ever incursion in its air defense zone. Taipei says 71 Chinese Air Force aircrafts took part in the military drills near the island over the weekend. Taiwan further adds that at least 43 of these planes crossed over Taiwan Strait's median line in the last 24 hours. The median line, which is an unofficial buffer between the two sides, lies within the defense zone. China, which claims Taiwan as its own territory, said that it conducted strike drills in the sea and airspace around the Taipei-Beijing, around Taipei, that is. But Beijing says the drills were in response to what it considered provocation from Taipei and Washington after a new U.S. defense authorization law was passed. The law aims to bolster Taiwan's defense capabilities against threats from China. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, meanwhile, reiterated the need to boost Taiwan's defense capacity. She emphasized on how it was imperative to be united against China's growing aggression. However, the Taiwanese president made no mention of the latest military drills by China. Taiwan released a statement saying, quote, the actions of the Chinese Communist Party highlighted its mentality of using force to resolve differences, which undermines regional peace and stability. Tensions surrounding Taiwan have increased substantially this year after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taipei in August.
Madam President.
The global economy surpassed $100 trillion for the first time back in 2022, but it's likely to stall in 2023 as policymakers continue their fight against high borrowing costs and soaring inflation. This, according to the British Consultancy Center for Economics and Business Research in its annual report. China is now not seen to overtake the U.S. as the world's largest economy, at least until 2036 at the earliest. 6 years later than expected, the CEBR blames this on flaws in China's COVID policy. It says the economic war between the West and China will end up hurting China's economy. The report says the UK is to remain the world's sixth largest economy. France will be seventh. But Britain is no longer set to grow faster than European peers due to what reports call, quote, an absence of growth-oriented policies and the lack of a clear vision of its role outside of the European Union. India will become the third $10 trillion economy in 2035 and the world's third largest by 2032. Experts say the findings are more pessimistic than the latest forecast from the International Monetary Fund. IMF warned in October that more than a third of the world's economy would contract, and there is a 25% chance of global GDP growing by less than 2% in 2023, which it defines as a global recession. Even so, by 2037, world gross domestic product will have doubled as developing economies catch up with the richer ones. The shifting balance of power will see the East Asia and Pacific region account for over a third of global output by 2037, while Europe's share shrinks to less than a fifth. For more on this story, we were joined earlier by economist Kilsman Muradi. Let's take a listen to what our guest had to say.
We have to realize that the world in 2023 has many different factors that will impact it. According to us, three of the biggest ones will be geopolitics, globalization, and societal change, which will have a big impact on the economy and on recession likelihood. Geopolitical risk, as we can see, is a big one, and it's very obvious to see. With globalization, we see that is also a result of COVID and also supply chain malfunctions, inflation due to the geopolitical risks. And the resulting outcome of that will be societal changes, mass migration of people, dysfunctional societies, and also more stress for businesses and people as they come into the new year. So it's not looking too good for the beginning of 2023. It's very, very difficult because in times of such convergence of these three major factors, any policy responses needs to be in unison with other countries for them to be successful. If each country takes on their own policies, which may be counter to the wider benefit of global cohesion, then we'll find many different fractious scenarios happening in the world. So a rise of interest rates in America, for example, causes ripple effects across the world. So it's hard for central banks to coordinate their policies, especially when things like geopolitical risk are out of their control and they can't mitigate for such circumstances. So it's very difficult for any real policy changes to impact the world in a long-term way, I think.
The Sikh community recruits will now be able to join the U.S. Marine Corps with their beards and turbans. This is as per a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that provides exceptions to the earlier Marine Corps rulebook. The decision comes after 3 Sikh recruits sought an exemption from Marines' grooming rule. That required men to shave their beards, and a big win for the 3 recruits. The U.S. court allowed them to join the elite unit's basic training without having to lose out on their religious beliefs. The trio had moved court after they were told that they will be allowed to join a Marine unit, that is, after shaving, as beard would impact the troop uniformity. The three-judge bench observed, and I quote, "The Sikh recruits not only have a substantial likelihood of success on the merits, it is difficult to imagine them losing." The council of three applicants called the ruling a major mark for religious freedom. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard do accommodate the religious requirements of Sikhism. In the Sikh religion, it is mandatory for the male adherents to not trim their hair and beard. "2022 was the year of revelations, be it about their relationship of marriage or rare diseases. A few celebrities broke the barrier and publicly spoke about their personal lives. Today, we take a look at some celebrities who have been vocal about their medical conditions in 2022. The first on our list is Justin Bieber. The Canadian pop star, after canceling a zillion shows, announced that he is suffering from temporary facial paralysis. The baby singer revealed that he had been diagnosed with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which is causing him partial facial paralysis.
Through so many ups and downs, so many good seasons, bad seasons.
He's taken a very long break.
Another medical name. Ramsay-Hunt syndrome is a rare neurological disorder which usually leads to paralysis of the facial nerve and a rash that generally affects the ear or mouth. It sometimes causes ringing in the ears, tinnitus, and hearing losses. The illness can occur in anyone who has had chickenpox. It is most common in older adults, particularly people over 60. Moving on to Indian actor Samantha Ruth Prabhu. Earlier this year, the actor revealed that she had been diagnosed with mitosis, an autoimmune disease which affects the muscles and makes them weak, sore, and exhausted. She revealed about her medical condition on social media. From one Indian celebrity to another, recently cast in Russo brothers' Indian version of Siddhartha, Varun Dhawan revealed during a movie promotion that he is suffering from a rare disease known as vestibular hypofunction. This is a condition in which the inner ear part of one's balance system fails to work properly and sends error messages to the brain, causing uneasiness or dizziness. The last one on our list is a recent and shocking one too. Titanic singer Celine Dion revealed that she was diagnosed with an incurable neurological disorder. The 54-year-old singer took to her Instagram to reveal the shocking and devastating news that she's been diagnosed with an incredibly rare and life-changing disease known as stiff person syndrome.
As you know, I've always been an open book. And I wasn't ready to say anything before. But I'm ready now. I've been dealing with problems with my health for a long time. And it's been really difficult for me to face these challenges and to talk about everything that I've been going through. Recently, I've been diagnosed with a very rare neurological disorder called stiff person syndrome.
Now let's see what is trending on WION's social media platforms. First up, on WION's Instagram, read how some Orthodox Ukrainians celebrated Christmas on the 25th of December, unlike on January 7th, as most Russians and Ukrainians usually do. The move aims to sever traditional ties with Russia as the conflict enters its 11th month. Coming up on WION's Twitter, have a look at the key moments from the protests in Iran, which started with the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini and have been continuing for the past 100 days. On WION's Facebook page, the trending story is about the sports of boxing. Read and get all the details about what is Boxing Day and why it is celebrated. Next up on WION's YouTube, watch how Moscow and Kyiv continue to make claims and counterclaims of having the upper hand in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. While in the fog of war, the finish line is clearly not visible. Lastly, on WION's website, read how, amid the spike in COVID cases in China, people are coming up with their own solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic, some of which have been gaining popularity and have gone viral on social media. That's all the time we have from this news desk here on WION Live from New York. I'm Susan Tehrani. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Meanwhile, don't go away. There's more news and headlines coming up on WION. World is One.
There are many other